Each year in Texas, more than 1,000 teenagers age out of the foster care system. It happens when they turn 18. The kids are legally adults. Tonight, the reality of what occurs to some of these foster children when the state says you are free to go.
What do you do when you never had a home to go back to? Those kids, they make their homes a 9mm, and they make their homes a pack of weed, and they make their homes knives, and they make their homes traps, and they make their homes blocks, and they make their home gangs.
Najee Walder was 3 years old when he entered the Texas foster care system. It was after his parents were convicted and sent to prison for killing his twin brother.
And I got it to let him know that you're never forgotten. I live every day for you.
Najee spent the next 16 years in foster care. That care ended 2 years ago. He was 19.
Did your foster parents teach you anything?
Yeah. I taught me not to love myself.
Najee shuffled between 8 different foster homes. He says most were a nightmare, but that's another story. This story is about what happens when these kids are told it's time to get out. It's called aging out of the system.
What do you do? Where do you turn?
Najee left without parents, without guardians, without a social security card or a birth certificate. There was no job training. Compare that to a criminal in this state who gets out of prison. An entire division is dedicated to re-entry. Resources include housing, employment, and medical screening. Do our kids aging out have to go to jail to have a good exit plan?
Absolutely not.
George Canada oversees the entire North Texas region for CPS. He says when a foster child ages out, there is a team of workers to ensure the young person has everything they need. But if it's there, why isn't it getting to the kids? Isn't it important that that network understands how to communicate and work together? Because it's not happening.
Definitely. Definitely. It has to be a coordinated effort.
I was going from hotel to hotel and going to day laborers during the day just to make some money to pay for the next hotel room the next day.
They're traumatized, they're scared, and they're unprepared.
Madeline Reedy is the director at Transition Resource Action Center, or TRAC. It is a nonprofit facility in North Texas trying to provide guidance and support for young people transitioning out of care.
There is a lot of benefits that our youth are eligible for. The problem is that our youth don't know how to tap into them.
Why is that an issue?
Well, then that's something that I'm definitely interested in hearing about those cases so that I can look at that and figure out how did we get to that point.
Cedric Reed entered foster care in 2004 when he was 14. He was beaten and tortured by his dad and stepmom.
I remember wondering why, God, was letting me go through that. What did I do to this? What did I do to deserve that?
Cedric spent 4 years in foster care and lived in at least 10 different homes.
These foster parents, a lot of them, there are some that care, but there's a whole lot of them that don't.
When Cedric didn't get the attention and guidance foster parents are paid to provide, he found it on the streets.
I got in a fight, and that fight led to an arrest. And so I was kind of thrust out onto the street. And so I was living from place to place.
Cedric finally found the Job Corps and got his GED after nearly 2 decades of neglect and abuse.
So this is my past. This is my future.
He found a new path.
A lot of foster kids don't really know what resources they have, and then even when they do know, they don't know how to go about even using them.
These are all very tangible things that would help a young person. Can you call your own doctor? Do you know what to say? Do you know the names of the medications that you're on? Do you know your diagnoses? You should know those things. So many of them age out and they don't know.
I would say I'm doing fairly well.
At 21, Najee is struggling to make ends meet. He's slowly but surely taking advantage of the resources he should have known about when he was 15. But so many others are still out there, and without help, their problem will become everyone's problem. This story is far from over. If you thought this report was troubling, we haven't even scratched the surface. I uncovered some very disturbing details in my interviews that will come to light in the coming weeks. I hope you will join me in this fight to protect the most vulnerable children in North Texas, because if you and I don't, it's already been proven no one else will.
And now to the story that's been at the top of our website all day.
Yeah, each year in Texas, more than 1,000 teenagers age out of the foster care system. It happens when they turn 18.
That's right. At that point, they're legally adults. Our Cynthia Izaguirre gives us a glimpse of the reality of what occurs to some of these foster children when the state says you're free to go. Cynthia joins us now after putting together a phenomenal piece that really touches on so much. I think when I was hearing you talk about the fact that when you're convicted of a crime, there's more guidance, more resources than children in the system. Wow, puts it into perspective. So what kind of reaction are you getting now after this piece?
I've gotten hundreds of comments, and I want to let everyone know that I'm getting through them slowly but surely. I've probably gotten through a quarter of them. I've got hundreds more to go, and I'm going to work on that this weekend, but I'm hearing from everyone. I'm hearing from former foster children who it sounds like are finally getting this burden off of their chest and saying, that happened to me. Last night, I was looking in the mirror. I have heard from a lot of concerned citizens who are asking, what can I do? And I'm also hearing from foster parents, because the good foster parents, the ones who are doing it right, they like us exposing the ones who are not doing it right. And so they encouraged me, told me they want me to follow up, and they want to see more stories, and there are more stories to come. In fact, Jason, you have read several of the pieces that I did before the one that aired last night, several pieces of edited copy, and so you know there's much more to come, because if you thought that last night was painful, the next story that we do is really going to open some eyes.
There's a lot that you ended up having to leave out just because you don't want to detract from the individual stories that we're telling here, and it has so many tentacles that this problem does, and trying to find solutions, it can be hard, and it's so complex that you almost have to separate these stories out to give them their full due, don't you?
Absolutely. So we focused more on aging out here, and that was my initial idea. What happens to these kids when they age out? Because I do the Wednesday's Child Reports, where I see foster kids every day. We get many of them adopted, but what about the ones who don't get adopted?
That's where you started wondering about this.
That's why I started wondering about it, and then once I talked to these former foster children, that's when the tentacles grew, and there are so many other pieces, because we've talked about them aging out. Now we got to go back and talk about what's happening in these foster homes. In many of these foster homes, again, there are some incredible ones. And to the foster parents who are good and are watching and do it right, thank you. For those of you who are in it for the money, shame on you. And we're going to expose you, and we're going to expose the system.
And you could still use so many more foster parents out there.
So many more. And so people keep asking, what can I do? That's been the #1 question. Real quickly, you can, #1, call your representative and ask them, what are you doing to protect foster children? #2, demand more from CPS and the child agencies that they contract to oversee foster homes. And #3, become a CASA volunteer, court-appointed special advocate. Help nonprofits who help the most vulnerable children in North Texas.
Great work on this. I know this is very close to your heart.
It is. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Cynthia.